We have a brand new JW broadcasting for the month of September. It's a brand new service year. Jehovah's Witnesses are all pumped because, well, I guess they're not really pumped anymore because a service year means nothing anymore because they don't count their time. So going in with a wet fart to the new service year. You skippity-doo-dah. Run the intro. Hello and welcome back to the JW Thoughts channel. My name is Wally and today we're doing the broadcast. Keeping the intro short, let's get right into it.
From the time we were born, all of us have been in need of comfort. You don't remember the first time you cried because you were hungry, uncomfortable, or needing to be held. But you probably do remember the last time you needed comfort. And no doubt many of us are in need of comfort right now. Many different situations can cause us trouble and sorrow, disappointment, or pain. Some of them are what we might call common because every imperfect human has to deal with them. Getting sick, growing old, and grieving the death of a loved one. Other reasons for distress could be called circumstantial, accidents, economic problems, the breakup of a marriage, natural disasters, becoming a victim of abuse or other crimes, civil unrest, and war. In addition, we may need comfort related to our worship, living in a divided household, experiencing persecution or imprisonment, facing ridicule in school or at the workplace, or perhaps a family member or a close friend leaves Jehovah. Repentant wrongdoers also need comfort when they return to the congregation.
The Jehovah's Witnesses have this very interesting way of incepting or infecting ideas into people where they essentially are a doctor that's giving people the problem and then prescribing them the medicine. But they kind of hide behind this thin facade. And that is, well, this is what God wants. And so they can tell you about all the problems that you might have. Oh, everything's so bad in the world. You're getting old. You might be the victim of abuse. You might be married to someone who's not a Jehovah's Witness. The audacity of them not to join the organization. All of these different things, right? And then they are going to come out and say, well, this is how God comforts you. But a Jehovah's Witness is going to be conditioned to think of God as synonymous with the governing body and the organization. And if they think about, well, God, this is the only way that God operates here on planet Earth is through this organization. Who controls this organization? It's the governing body. And yet an ordinary Jehovah's Witness will never make this connection. They will just think, oh, this is how God operates, when in fact, they're just getting a diagnosis from a doctor who's then giving them the treatment. But, well, that's not really, they're not even getting a diagnosis. It's much worse than that. It's like a doctor is like, throwing friggin' anthrax at them and then giving them, I don't know anything about anthrax, but then giving them the vaccine for anthrax. You need a vaccine. Anyway, you guys get what I'm saying.
No, not really.
And so as we go through this talk, we won't, spend too much time on it, but I just want to really highlight how important it is to recognize these patterns of just how they get their people to follow the governing body no matter what they say, and yet the governing body hide behind the shield of God and the organization, while in a practical sense, not offering people anything, literally nothing at all. But we'll get into that as we go through this.
Jehovah has always been the ultimate source of true comfort. Moses was convinced that Jehovah would support and comfort him no matter what situation he faced. When we're down and struggling to get up, Jehovah will put his arms beneath us, gently lift us up, and help us to get back on our feet. One of the best ways to receive comfort from Jehovah is to ask him for it. The loving parent patiently responds to his child's tearful cries. Jehovah turns his compassionate ear to our pleas for help.
So this is something that I've talked about in one of my favorite videos that I've ever made, but essentially, like, this was in regard to Jehovah's protection, but you could kind of tangentially relate it to comfort as well. Like, what does God's comfort mean in a practical sense? Like, what does that look like? Oh, he hears you and he has his protective arm around you, and yet you still have all of the same problems that you have to figure out and deal with. Now, I'm not a spiritual person myself, so like I don't pray and get that good old serotonin balance and cortisol reduction in my brain when I do that. That's just me. So I understand, like, for other people, you know, they might, you know, sense the spirit of God is engulfing them or helping them through their problems or whatever the case might be. But in a more like hardcore nuts and bolts nature, like, what is actually happening? What is moving the needle for you in your life in a practical sense? And by all accounts that I can see, it's nothing. So what does this mean? That he'll provide you comfort? Like, you can call a good friend of yours for comfort and you can talk to them. You can hear their voice. You know, they might want to go out and, hey, let's go grab dinner. Let's go watch a movie. Let's go for a walk. You know, they might give you some practical tips. They might be able to tell you something, you know, and it's an active, dynamic thing. What he's saying is you can go and read this stale old book from 2,000 years ago that you've already read 100 times before. You can just regurgitate to yourself the same scriptures that you've memorized since you were a child. And for me, that doesn't really sound like comfort. And it's a little bit dangerous to put people's, you know, mental health, their ability to deal with anxiety, in the hands of something that we know is a nothing burger. It doesn't work. It doesn't do anything. And so telling people to rely on a known unreliable method to bring them actual real world comfort is a bit irresponsible, especially when it comes to, you know, problem solving. When someone is going through a lot of problems in their life, this is a time when they might need practical, active, dynamic advice. And to give them something that's stale, that doesn't really work, only to keep them in your sort of sphere of control, is a really dangerous, manipulative tactic. And having Jehovah's Witnesses that are attached to this, they're so attached to the idea that the only way that they'll be able to get comfort is from God. And for them, God is synonymous with the organization. And now you just have this dependent relationship where people can't handle problems on their own. They can't go out and find real solutions to their problems in practical ways and use their old thinking noodle. And so telling people to not use that gusto that they have inside of them and trying to suppress that in order to manipulate them to be dependent on you is a little bit annoying.
In many cases, the need is obvious. Our brother met with an accident, or has lost his job, or a close friend or a family member has died. For some, the need may not be so obvious. We may notice a change in behavior, or their facial expression may tell us that something is troubling them. We don't want to pry, but we can kindly approach them and gently draw them out. They may need time before they feel comfortable opening up about their feelings, so we want to be patient.
So here's my real bone to pick with this narrative, is that similar to what I had said about God's protection, you know, what does that actually mean? A lot of people, the first thing they hear when they hear that is, well, God, they never said that you'd get physical protection, even though they low-key kind of do. But what they give is spiritual protection. And the point I made in that video is similar to the point I guess I'm going to make now when it comes to this comfort, is that what does the spiritual comfort mean? And if you actually take a step back and look at it, the Jehovah's Witnesses fail on this front too. Spiritual comfort. Do you think that it is comforting to know that your doctrine is so loosey-goosey, fickle, and so obviously strung together by the whims of whoever is leading the organization at any particular time? Does that give you comfort? When a Jehovah's Witness is sitting there, and like he says, they might notice that they're withdrawn, that they're sad, that their facial expressions have changed, there is a pretty good chance that the reason behind that is because changes within the organization. Hey, all of these years you've had to report your hours and report time, and you've measured your success as a human being by how many hours you put on that little piece of paper. And it was all tied to your spirituality. Nah, you don't need to do it anymore. You're standing out from the world. No, I make sure I know only clean shaven. That's how we do things as Jehovah's Witnesses. Nah, we don't really need to do that anymore. Everyone is at your work party and they're all clinking their glasses and saying a toast and having a good time. Nope. Sorry, that's going to allow the demons to enter this office building, and I don't want them to enter my butt. So, hey, y'all have fun with your little demon fest over there, but I'm not going to do it. It's not really that big of a deal. Go ahead. We don't really care. You have freaking Serena Williams getting baptized as a Jehovah's Witness, and then months later taking part in the Olympic opening ceremony. Has tons of pagan rituals and all kinds of things you could point out there. Neutrality, everything. I made a whole video about it. And you see that, and what do you have to do? Delude yourself? Well, she's probably not really baptized. No, she is. You see this double standard. And you get a picture of an organization that is just shifting and changing its entire identity. Going from hardcore Bible students reading, books and piles of literature and talking about types and antitypes and prophecies and trying to figure out when the end is going to be. And now you're in a freaking social club. If you go back to the 90s and you look at it, the Witnesses now, it is a completely different religion. Culturally, the rules, everything. It's a social club, more or less now. And you're looking at that and saying, is that comforting to know that this spiritual thing that I hold so dear, the most important thing in my life, has fundamentally changed from when I made a decision that this was going to be the most important thing in my life? Now it's not even that thing anymore. Is that comforting? You can say, oh, well, God, he doesn't give, what do you expect God to just fix everyone's problems? He's just going to swoop down and everyone's just going to be comforted and they'll get a new job and whatever the case is. Okay, let's look at it from a spiritual perspective then. Is there any spiritual comfort being a Jehovah's Witness in the Big 25? I don't see it. I legitimately don't see it. The only thing that you're getting is being able to have your family members close to you if they are Jehovah's Witnesses. And that's it. But guess what? Every Jehovah's Witness out there is going to be able to close their eyes and think to themselves, everyone outside of the organization, they also have their family members. So what am I actually doing here? What am I getting out of this thing? And the answer, I think, is nothing. So the organization has gone over this overhaul. They've completely changed everything. And I think that has a direct effect on people's overall happiness and disposition. And that's going to be a reason that a lot of them are going to be sad and depressed. And what are you going to tell them? Cheer up? No, the doctrine didn't change. No, the organization is the same as it's always been. What are you going to say to comfort them? They're struggling financially. They didn't go to college, whatever the case is. And what are you going to say? Well, kids now can go to college. The kids that you don't have because you never got married because the end was right around the corner, they can go to college. What does that do for you? So I really dislike this, whatever you can call it, either one, comfort or protection. This whole narrative just doesn't make any sense. And I find it like annoying and a little bit dangerous because it leaves people in this limbo where they're not getting anything spiritually, physically, anything, right? Socially. And yet they're dependent on the organization that's keeping them in that limbo. And it's just such a sad situation.
Do not withhold good from those to whom you should give it, if it is within your power to help. This world sinks ever deeper into these critical last days. Our need for comfort will only increase. How grateful we are that Jehovah is the Father of tender mercies and the God of all comfort. He has generously given us the gift of prayer, abundant words of comfort in the Bible, and a compassionate worldwide brotherhood. As we benefit from these loving provisions, may we be alert to recognize others who need comfort, determine what practical help we can offer, and take steps to comfort others while we cope during these critical times.
So a scripture in the Bible that he quotes is, if it's within your power, you have the means, don't withhold helping people. And yet Watchtower has the means to help people, and they just refuse. They don't do it. And even when they do claim that they help people with disaster relief or whatever charitable ventures that they think, at least in their heads, it's not very much. It's like $12 million a year. It's not a lot. And again, it's right there in the Bible, if it's within your means. Watchtower is sitting on what is an infinite money glitch, essentially. If you have a multi-billion-dollar real estate portfolio, it's crazy. The funny, goofy little financial schemes that you can run to just print money, essentially, for yourself. And if any of those assets depreciate, you sell it and you build a new one with free labor. Like, they are in the biggest win-win situation ever. So I would at least assume if they have a functioning frontal lobe, that they could put some sort of scheme or system together that would give them access to tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars per year that they could give out in charitable ventures. Hundreds of millions of dollars, life-changing security for Jehovah's Witnesses that would otherwise find themselves in a very precarious situation. If you're a Jehovah's Witness and you have a low-paying job and you are a pioneer and you do most of like your work for Watchtower for free, and then you get some type of sickness and man, you got medical bills out the wazoo, Watchtower could set up a system or something to help alleviate some of those situations that no doubt happen all around the world. And they refuse. So here in the Bible, you have something that says, hey, this is God talking to you, knocking on the front door. We need you guys to, if it's within your means, to help people. And they say, yeah, but what really helps people is if we tell other people to help them. And then it's basically like us helping them, right? Anyway, this whole thing is a little bit bizarre and silly, but let's move on to the next section of the broadcast.
When I look at this picture of Aristarchus holding on to Paul, sticking close to him through a challenging time, it makes me think about how brothers and sisters really helped me out through a difficult situation. The whole area was flooded, including the house in which I was living at that time. I was wading through waters which at the deepest point came up to about chest height. The battery on my phone was completely flat, which meant I couldn't contact anybody.
The Watchtower highlighted Tychicus as a trustworthy friend, and my friends have been very trustworthy, and without them, I wouldn't have been able to cope. My dad suddenly had a massive stroke, but then my brother, he left Jehovah, and then just a few months later my dad died.
When I was studying this article, I could immediately put names down for people who helped me, like Aristarchus and Tychicus. But then as it came down to Mark and the practical help that he was able to give, well, I thought, that's my whole congregation. In 2016, my wife, Kerry, she lost her battle with cancer. And yeah, all of a sudden I was on my own. Kerry is the best person I ever met. I learned from her that when you let people in, you let Jehovah in too.
So we have some different situations, some challenges people are facing. I did find it curious how this one woman, it felt like when she was retelling her story, emotionally, her dad having a stroke was less of a serious issue for her than her brother leaving Jehovah. And again, leaving Jehovah isn't what they're saying, because someone could leave the Jehovah's Witnesses and still be a spiritual person and come out on the other side still a Christian. So they haven't left God necessarily, but they've left the teachings of the governing body. And for her, that is the same as a life-altering illness and medical situation from your dad is just a very good insight into what it's like in the mind of a Jehovah's Witness when you're dealing with someone that is left. That person that is left is supposed to have this stigma and this view of just like, how could you possibly do this evil, crazy, nonsensical thing? You're going to die. All of this stuff is attached to it. And that stigmatization that they have for anyone that chooses to leave, use their free will, still is right in the organization. No matter what they do to their policies about shunning, hey, you can say hello to some people, hey, you're only disfellowship for 3 months, whatever the case is, they are always going to stick with this social stigmatization of anyone that chooses to leave the organization. But boy, howdy, hey, they're all comforted because Paul and Lord Siphidius were holding on to a boat. Yippee!
I was wading through the water and I was just thinking, if I can just make it to the home of this brother and sister, everything will be all right. And sure enough, when I arrived at their home, I was welcomed inside, an opportunity to get clean, get warm, and enjoy a nice meal. And just like Aristarchus was willing to make sacrifices, they offered me to stay in their home for as long as I needed to. It was clearly inconvenient for me to stay in their home, but that inconvenience, it was outweighed by their genuine desire to help and look after me through a difficult time. As soon as I plugged in my phone and it got power, the phone rang, and it was the brother that had been my Bible instructor as a youth, and he was just checking in, making sure that I was all right and that I got everything that I needed. But it didn't stop there. In the time that followed, my friends continued to reach out, to get in touch, to make sure that I got everything that I needed. They even continued to invite me around for meals, just to make sure that I could move on from what had taken place.
So we have a situation where there is a straight line, point A, point B. This guy, he needed help, and he got help from his friends. Watchtower inserts themselves in the middle of this transaction of friends taking care of their friends and says, well, it's only because of us that you're being taken care of by your friends, when they haven't actually done anything. And then everyone throws their hands up and says, hey, praise be to the governing body. If it weren't for Stephen Lett and his ludicrous facial expressions, we would never be able to just take care of our friends. We wouldn't know what to do. We wouldn't be able to pick up a cell phone and call someone. I mean, you know what? My house is flooded. I don't know what to do. Should I start talking into a plunger?
Wow, plunger, plunger. Wow, plunger, plunger.
They make it sound like human beings are incapable of doing anything else. And this is the gambit that they run, where they don't have to do anything, and yet they get to take credit for what people do when they do good things. And I always just want to remind people, if you're just now leaving this organization, honestly evaluate every single time that you have thought the organization did something for someone. And ask yourself, did they really do anything for them? Or was it just people being altruistic? Was it just people taking care of their friends? Because when I step back and, I was hardcore, I was a lifer, I was in the middle of the congregation, baby. Everyone knows my family. We were in there deep. Well, they are still, but I'm out. I can tell you definitively, I really sat down for hours and tried to think of a single example of Watchtower directly helping someone in the 25 years that I was associated with the organization. And nothing. Absolute donut. So Watchtower, you're the donut. Stop inserting yourself in between this normal human transaction where people help other people.
A good close friend of mine, she invited me for hot chocolate. And then she just asking how I was getting on. I said I was really struggling to sleep. And she very kindly showed me her journal. I thought it was such a great idea, and I found it really helped. I would always have 5 things that I could say thank you to Jehovah for. My husband Luke is an amazing listener. Just listening to whatever I was feeling at that time, even if it was a bit wild. There were other brothers and sisters that also were very patient with me, and I would repeat myself over and over again. They didn't mind, they were just happy to listen. I needed reassurance because I didn't feel I was coping with my father. It was like I couldn't believe he'd passed away until I'd seen the death certificate. And it was the same with my brother. It wouldn't be real until I heard the announcement. And I thought that's going to sound very strange. But I shared that with my friend and she said, no, that's fine, it's okay. And that was really reassuring. I didn't think I was going crazy.
So here's another situation where being a Jehovah's Witness is just a net negative for your life. Still curious that she seems to have more of an emotional reaction. Definitely could be editing, but the message is, I guess, is all the same. More of an emotional reaction to her brother leaving Jehovah than her father passing away. And, both didn't feel real to her till she, saw the death certificate or till she heard that announcement. And again, you wouldn't have lost your brother. He wouldn't have left Jehovah. And the reason that you're emotional about that is because you can no longer speak to him. You have to cut him out of your life. You have to pretend that your brother is essentially dead until he grovels and comes back crawling to Watchtower. So why is it beneficial being a Jehovah's Witness? Like, what spiritual comfort are you receiving? You can read in the Bible, Jesus, the Son of God himself, giving this parable of the son that goes away and he sleeps with the pigs and he blows his inheritance and he comes back to his father. And what does his father do? He runs out to him, gives him a big hug. There's forgiveness, there's mercy, there's grace. And yet for Jehovah's Witnesses, if that person comes back, they'll go like, nope, you need to go talk to the elders there, big guy. I ain't speaking until you get in good graces with the elders. And once Watchtower has cleared you and said, okay, you are now on the approved list of people that I can speak with, then I will come and talk to you. That is the sad reality of this woman's life. If she wanted to be a Christian, she could just do that somewhere else, and her life would immediately be improved.
I would ask Jehovah, how am I going to be able to encourage my uncle when I myself need encouragement?
The doctor said, this is your lung. See this mass here? You have lung cancer.
There's a feeling of helplessness when someone you rely on falls ill, and there's so little you can do to help or comfort them.
And you can start seeing a theme developing here. Let's find people that have gone through really horrific tragedies in their life and are facing some of the harshest circumstances you can, and then demonstrate how being a Jehovah's Witness is better and has helped them. Yet if you just stop, if you put your fingers in your ears for like a day, just give yourself a couple of hours and think for yourself, write down on a piece of paper, like, what is the actual benefit that I'm getting from being a Jehovah's Witness? Does it add up to anything other than I have these people here, which if you didn't have them, you'd assuredly have someone else that would probably be there for you in a better way, because they would be able to give you unconditional love and not say, well, I will love you as long as. And that pretty much wraps up this broadcast. I suppose if I want to tackle the other sections, maybe I'll go into it. Highly doubt it. Not terribly interesting, but I suppose we'll never really know what'll happen. So I'll spare you guys a music video maybe this month. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you're still around, don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. It's very much appreciated. And with all that, stay safe, be kind, and don't forget to spend more time loving the things you love than hating the things you hate. And you better have a good ass day.